Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. This is a special meeting of the Meyersdale Borough Council. Since we have so many people here, let's rise. We'll do the pledge, and our solicitor will offer the opening prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads. Your Heavenly Father, Lord, help the council to make the right decisions and to make choices, Lord, not only for you, but for the betterment of this community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mark. Patty, the roll call, please.
Mr. Ackerman? Here. Mr. Bear? Here. Mr. Baker's absent. Mrs. Nagy? Here. Mr. Irwin?
Here.
Mrs. Canarium? Here. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Solicitor Valentine?
Here.
And Mayor Smith?
Here. Thank you, Patty. Okay, before we start, I have a few announcements to make, myself and the solicitor. It is exciting, and I'm thrilled to see this many people here to a special meeting in support of, I'm assuming, handicap accessibility and also this community center. Everyone around this table supports as much handicap accessibility as we can do. I know I've done it in my office for 46 years now, and this building is absolutely a treasure. Some of us have worked very hard to convince the council a year ago that we remain in this building, and look at what's going on here tonight with the children, and the gym is used frequently. The purpose for this meeting tonight was primarily called for and requested by the Meyersdale Municipal Authority. We have two vacancies, 2 resignations, which we have to accept this evening. And we have to advertise for those positions in the newspaper. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some applicants, and we'll put those individuals on, appoint them at the March meeting. Brian Witherwright and Barry, Donnie Anderson had indicated it's hard for them to get a quorum, missing 2 people. So that is the main reason for this meeting. Our solicitor and I were talking, and after the last meeting, at the end of the last meeting, there was a motion made, I think Karen made it, about moving forward with getting grants for handicap accessible restrooms. And there was some confusion if you look at the tape, what Terry said versus the motion. And then we went into executive session, and there were some decisions which were made, and as far as how to move forward, which, as you know, I can't discuss what goes on in executive session. We came out of executive session and we adjourned. It was as simple as that. Solicitor Mark, when we were talking about setting up this meeting, he said to me, he said, Jeff, I think we should also put on the agenda the item about the handicap accessible bathrooms, to revisit them. Revisit, okay? So I called Patty to set up the agenda, and I had her on one line, an oral surgeon on another line, and a pharmacy wanting to talk to me. I said rescind, and it was my fault. Nobody here is interested in rescinding or doing anything inappropriate about the handicap accessible bathrooms. I certainly am not. So that's the reality of the situation. Things blew up on Facebook, which I'm not a part of. So that's my 2 cents. You can go ahead, and then we're going to do public comment.
So just so everybody understands what I mean by revisit, this topic needs to stay on the agenda, because whether you have a loved one, and I've talked to several of you, or you yourself have any kind of special needs, you know the bathrooms in this building are not in great shape. They definitely do not meet the requirements that they need to meet. Quite frankly, I think, and I know that you've already started that process, but we need to take our time, not be overly slow, but take our time and be prudent with the choices that are made so that they're done right. There are facilities that I have been around and have represented, without getting into names, that have rushed those things and quite frankly have done an injustice. If you know the rules and regs that go into these bathrooms and the accessibility to this building, you know that it has to be done right. If you if you have ever encountered the ramps at this place, you'll notice that the grades themselves are not correct. The surfaces aren't correct. I am surprised, and I'll say this publicly, that we haven't had more issues. But one of the things that we all need to keep in mind is what it's going to take financially. I know you said you've looked for grants and there's really not that much available.
We have new information today.
Okay.
Pretty excited.
So hopefully it's positive. But we really need, we need to be smart about it. You have to realize too that we have the flood control. We're trying to get the second grant. Hopefully we can. We also have the project at Dar Construction is getting ready to start, which you've met with, I think, today. So we just need to make sure that we're doing this right, because the accessibility requirements, and not to stress this too much, they've been around for quite some time. So we're a little bit behind, to be nice. But we just, I think we need to stay on that, and every meeting, keep moving forward. There's a lot of people that use this building, not just for these meetings, and we need to get there.
The last thing I'll say here, we have, just to show you what the borough could potentially be facing, we have an estimate to fix the flood control riprap down there, and the amount was $412,095 to do that. This was according to our engineer. Now, the engineer said, well, we tried to make it to cover every little item that may occur. But in my 8 years before I'm on here now, all the projects we've done, none of them came under budget. So 412,000 is what the figure our engineers come up with. We requested $304,901, and we got $225,500. So I wish Terry were here. He could give some information on the Army Corps of Engineers. We're trying to get a grant for them also. Did I misspeak?
No.
Army Corps. But assuming we don't get any other grants, that's $186,595 that this borough has to come up with, even with the $225,000. So I wanted to give this preface again. I've said enough. Public comment is now open. Keep your comments nice. You have 5 minutes. If you ask questions, our answers are going to erode into your 5 minutes. We ask if you want to say something, anybody's welcome to say it. Just come up to the podium here. We're videotaping it. Give us your name. Yes.
I would just like to say something. So we did have unanimous vote on Tuesday night, and on Wednesday morning, I got working on all this. I contacted not less than 4 people. It would have been very respectful and prudent to have given me a courtesy call and say, I know we told you to proceed, Karen, but we want to slow this down a little bit. It was just inappropriate. So I just wanted to state that.
Thank you very much.
Very unkind.
Thank you. Public comment is now open. Ready? Go.
Sure. My name's Wendy Kelly. And I did prepare something tonight because honestly, I felt like a little bit of transparency on what you actually said and what was given to the public should have been maybe notified then that the special meeting said that we were going to revisit, not rescind. So I'll just go ahead and read what I had prepared. So I'm here tonight to discuss the issue that is not just about compliance, but about dignity, fairness, and opportunity for all members of our community. Last week, the board had unanimously passed a motion to review the ADA accessibility and address a need to ensure that our borough building is compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is not merely a legal requirement, but is also a moral obligation and a reflection of our values as a community. To seek to include and support every individual regardless of ability. Imagine for a moment if entering this very building it was an obstacle course, one that some of us could never complete. For individuals with disabilities, this is a reality that they face daily when buildings lack proper accessibility. Steps without ramps, narrow doorways, inaccessible restrooms, the absence of proper signage can make what should be a simple task to attend a meeting, paying a bill, or seeking assistance an impossible challenge. The ADA was enacted over 30 decades ago, so it's very disappointing that we are still not where we need to be. We are still falling short to meet any of the standards in this building. The borough building is meant to serve all residents, but if it's not accessible to everyone, then we are failing a vital portion of our population. People with disabilities are business owners, students, parents, veterans, and active community members. They deserve the same rights to participate in civic life as anyone else. Ensuring that our borough building is ADA compliant is not just about meeting a mandate, it's about opening doors, literally and figuratively, for people who have the right to engage in their local government, access services, and feel welcomed in a space designed for them, such as for anyone else. ADA compliance also benefits more than just individuals with disabilities. It also benefits parents with strollers, senior citizens, and people recovering from injuries of all. I think about Clarence. If Clarence had to come in here right now, it would be extremely difficult. And then send Clarence to the restroom if he needs help for God forbid he doesn't have to do that here. When we design with inclusivity in mind, we create more welcoming, functional, and equitable community for everyone. Let's make it clear, accessibility is not an option, it's a necessity. And it is a demonstration of our commitment to equal rights, and it ensures that every resident, regardless of their abilities, can fully participate in this community life. And I urge our leaders and decision makers and community members to come together and take action. Let's commit to making our borough building a place that truly serves all of its people. Because when we remove barriers, we don't just make buildings accessible, we make opportunities accessible, and that benefits us all.
Thank you, Wendy. Public comment?
Thank you. My name is Tony DeLuca. I'm the county treasurer, if you don't know who I am. I've been blessed with a daughter who's 35 years old. She's in a wheelchair. We come down here to Meyersdale. I'm a man, my daughter's a woman. I got to take her in the men's restroom. So how would you like to take a woman in the men's restroom? Because no one's going to like me going in the women's restroom. They're going to have a problem with it. So when you have a child, and especially like Wendy, she has her son. What does she do? She has to take her in the women's restroom. And you have to have room for a wheelchair. I mean, if we could have our kids normal, it'd be great. But we can't. God gave us a child with an issue. Doesn't matter how much money you got. There's grants out there. There's ways to get money. You get thousands of people here in the next couple of weeks. There is nothing in town for handicapped. Nowhere. Although, like Sheets, you go into Sheets. I got to take her in the men's restroom. I got to go past urinals. The guys are standing there going to the bathroom. It's not right. I mean, and to say, you're going to try to say, well, we're going to rescind it. We're going to look at other ways. You guys are you guys are far behind a lot of the other communities. And you guys probably got more tax base than a lot of the communities. But the good thing is, they've already addressed that. They have put money aside, or they have gotten grants. I mean, there's some visitors bureaus out there. The county has a hotel tax. Have you guys ever thought about asking the county, hey, can you help us? Because that money is for visitors bureau, for visitors. You got to open up your mouth. You can't sit back and say, well, we're going to look at other ways. Well, we're going to table this. You can't. Because put yourself in our shoes as parents. And you have to go into the restroom. Doc, would you go in the girls' restroom? You wouldn't, would you? If you had a child, you wouldn't. Would it be hard for you to take that child into the girls' restroom? It is. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to take my daughter, but she got to go. I got to take her. We can't. On our issues, we can't just say, hey, hold it till we get home. I mean, you got a beautiful city here. You got to make it good for our kids. And I just ask you, don't rescind it. Push forward. Don't sit back. You can always ask the county, hey, can you help us a little bit? I mean, just to put a family restroom in, and it doesn't have to be big. I mean, you're not saying, hey, we're going to do them all, do all the restrooms. Just a small family restroom, and say that's the handicap restroom. And that helps us as family members, take our child to the bathroom.
And I have a suggestion for that when we're done with public comment.
Okay, I thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you, Tony, thank you for coming. Public comment?
Hi, I'm Jessica Deakins,
Go.
pushing 57 years of residency here in Meyersdale, and I don't know that there really is anybody in here that I'm unfamiliar with unless you're actually not from Meyersdale. I'd like to start by saying that I did my time in Parks and Recreation. I was a member of the first or initial Parks and Recreation after the board, the Maple board oversaw the community center. So I was part of that transition. And that was a very rough time to be in public service here in Meyersdale because primarily the funding of this building came from recreational activities that we did in the community center. And Jeff can attest to that. The money that we were raising went back into electricity and paying the person who fired the furnace. And like when we entered the building, the basement was full of debris, and we started by cleaning out and kind of trying to get the building to a point where it was usable to our community. So just to give you an idea of my perspective, that would have been over 15 years ago. And one of our initiatives at that time, with the help of members of Borough Council, Jeff included, when he came on the board, was to look at ADA compliance. We looked at the stairwells and potentially putting in lift chairs. We looked at the ramps that we had. We looked at potentially installing elevators. We funded studies. But then it seemed as if all of those initiatives came to a halt. And as someone who was here when this building every single evening was hopping, rifle range, buildings upstairs being rented for all different kinds of meetings, Boy Scouts here, the Brownies here, ballroom dancing classes. There wasn't a day where you could come in this building where it wasn't busy. The obvious need for ADA compliance was evident then. So I think it's a long time coming. It needs to happen in our community. And all we can do, as Wendy says, is open the door for more use. I also want to address how the building operated at that time. Jeff and I, with the help very much of this young woman here, managed a calendar of activities that happened in this building. We never charged any entity an excessive amount of money to use the building, but there was a fee attached to the use of the building so that we had a sense of responsibility to the building, for the cleanliness of the building, for the upkeep of the building, for the maintenance of the building. I want to say, Patty, it was $15 an hour was our typical rental fee that we were charging. I can tell you, I think it's wonderful right now that we have volleyball going on over here. That is a travel team that is not from Meyersdale. Using your gym, probably for free or for a very minimal amount. Back in the day, when Little League used the building, when softball used the building, when every entity used the building, they made a goodwill contribution to this building that helped keep the doors open. Do I think that amount of money can pay for ADA compliance with a restroom? Certainly not. But I think that there has to be some responsibility from your rentals using the building. I know that when I was involved in some of those organizations, there was also an understanding that when the gym was damaged, when a sign was broken, when lights were broken, we had to come in and complete maintenance for the upkeep of the building. Thanks to Jeff and his hard work to refinish that floor and the support of Borough Council, that gym's spectacular. But all you have to do is look to the double doors that are in there that are still painted neon blue with duct tape on them to know that the building's been damaged. People should be responsible and beholden to their community center. To have an open door policy is wonderful, but that's not the reality of a community center. Go to Wimber and see how Wimber operates their community center. They have all kinds of rec leagues and events happening there. People pay rent for use. Some of that money can be put in this building to make the building better. That money can go to renovation. That money can go to upkeep. But it also keeps people very responsible in the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
I think, Mike Roten, I think just to piggyback a little bit on what Jessica and Wendy said, I think revisit versus rescind. Rescind is a completely different topic. But the main reason I wanted to talk is I think that Meyersdale needs to look at what they have more from a business-minded perspective, and you might want to entertain as a council adding a position that is, manages those processes like you're talking about with the fees in the gym. There's so much on everybody's plate here, whether you're a council member or whether you're working in the borough, but there's benefit to it. There's, that individual can be researching the grants, that individual can be charging the fees. I've played pickleball here 3 or 4 times now that it started. I paid $2 each time. I've visited about 4 different places in Pittsburgh. I'm paying $12 to $15 for every 2 hours. Each time I've played here, there's been 20 or 30 people. When I play in Pittsburgh, there's 50 people. I mean, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour that's coming in. I think we've had a lot of waste. I know we've torn down buildings that have cost 6 figures to the borough based off of code not being kept up and individuals not maintaining their properties and letting them become blighted. And it somehow falls on the borough to spend that money that could be going for a lot of other things. And if you have somebody that's business minded and grant minded and legal minded, they're gonna look into that. I talked multiple times about the fact that our zoning doesn't include a multi-million-dollar rail trail, and the fact that you can't have a bike shop up there. I had to pay to have a hearing just to have a bike shop at the trail. I'm the only one that's allowed to have a bike shop at the trail because I paid for a hearing. Change your zoning and somebody else can do it, whatever it may take. But we're losing so many opportunities, and there's so much that this town has to offer. And that's why I invested in it. That's why I come here, because I'm proud of my hometown. And I think there's a ton of people that are proud of this area. And we just need to do better from a revenue generation, grants, and I think it'll come together because there's a lot of good people that are, wanting it to come together. So,
Thank you, Mike. Public comment? Barry? Going once? Twice? Okay, public comment is now closed. Moving on with our agenda. How about, do we have the letters, Patty? Do you just want to read them?
I don't have them.
I received both. We don't have to actually read them.
Go
I
ahead.
received both resignations by email. It was Sandy Miller and also Louis Martin. They have both stated that they want to resign from the Meyersdale Municipal Authority. And I think we should thank them for the service that they gave and understand that both of them have extenuating circumstances that it's amazing, quite frankly, that they continued to serve as long as they did.
Do you know, Mark, where the terms end? Like, is one a 5-year term? Was Louis a 4-year term and a 1-year term? What are we?
I believe they are all 4-year terms. Sandy, this is off the top of my head, I believe.
The 5-year terms.
Is it 5? I was thinking
5 of
4.
them.
Might be 5. I think Sandy had, 2 years left on hers. I'd have to double check that. And Louis would have had an additional year above that, I believe.
Could we have a motion to accept those 2 resignations? One motion, I'm assuming, will suffice.
I make that motion.
Thank you, Ron. And the second. Tom seconds it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Clarence votes aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. So next we have to vote to advertise these positions. Would it be appropriate, Mr. Solicitor, that we advertise the two positions on the Water Authority and list that they're appointed positions and the expiration date of each?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
So like somebody's gonna get like a 3-year term maybe and a 1-year term, or yes.
My concern is, which I told you at the last meeting, was I think that these people who are applying need to know exactly what they're applying for. Because they're
Right.
not just in to say yes, no, yay, nay. They need to know, we're looking at grants, we have problems with DEP, we have problems with the water building, we have this. And I don't think people know that. I think that this almost needs to be a job description.
And we tasked Brian with doing that for tonight.
And I have started that process.
Okay.
We had a long discussion, longer than, and Barry will probably chime in on that, longer than they may have wanted on that process, but it was very functional. My hope is to have that actual wording to the Borough Council before the Borough meeting, this coming Borough meeting, and being able to show what exactly is expected, AKA what you will get into by being willing to be appointed to that board.
That's a good point.
So how do we advertise if we don't have that?
Well, I would say at this point, based on what Brian had indicated, and the other members, we go ahead and advertise for positions and then see who applies. And at that point, we can speak with them and educate anybody that's interested. But according to what my understanding, with the remaining 3 members of the MMA, they would like us to try to get someone on there as quickly as possible moving forward. So my suggestion would be we go ahead and advertise, and then once Patty gets someone who's interested, then we could maybe talk to them a little bit and say, do you realize what you're getting into? I mean, I would be willing to do that before we would vote. But I'd like to see who would be interested in applying, but it's a very important position in the community.
It should be
Go ahead.
simpler than that, because the plan is for me to bring that job description, for lack of a better term, to the workshop meeting for the MMA the first Tuesday of March. So I believe they're going to approve it unless I have screwed it up royally, then they won't. But I would assume that they will add or subtract whatever they want from it, approve it, and at that meeting, then we'll have exactly what is needed.
But, or can we go ahead and advertise? Or don't,
You could advertise now. It's just we need to make sure, though, that anybody, maybe we should put in the ad that anybody who is considering that should contact the office. And that way, as soon as it's ready, we can send it out to them so they know exactly what. That way, everybody receives a uniform description.
I mean, we can wait and just do this at the March meeting and then advertise and do it in April. I'm not necessarily trying to rush it, but it was my understanding that they would like to get, Barry's nodding yes, that they'd like to get these positions filled as quickly as possible. And I agree with them. So what does council want to do?
Filling in with somebody that isn't aware is not going to help. I mean, if you're just going for a warm body there, it's not going to.
That's not a good warm body
No,
position.
that's not.
I think it's putting the cart before the horse if they don't know what they're getting into.
Well, but by the same token, it doesn't hurt to advertise. And I mean, I have a couple people in mind that I would speak to ahead of time if we make the motion to advertise and explain a little bit to them ahead of time so that they would be kind of preempted as far as what's expected of them. But whatever, let's somebody make a motion. If you want to wait and revisit this at the March meeting, that's fine. It is entirely up to this council.
I make the motion that we table it until we have the role profile, so everybody gets good information. We can put good information out in the advertisement so people know what they're signing up for.
Is there a second? Ginny seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. I think we should do it now, but that's okay. The majority rules there. So let's move on to the next item. Okay. Members of the MMA have come to me. This has been a point that's been kind of, I think the solicitor may support this. Discuss potential resolution to preclude any individual to serve on both the Borough Council and the Meyersdale Municipal Authority Board simultaneously. I kind of think it's a good idea. I know the president of the MMA supports this. I don't know how Barry feels on it. You support it. I know Donnie Anderson, we've discussed it. These are the ones that are left, but I'll ask the solicitor to comment, and then we can have a discussion on this. I'm just doing what I was asked to do as far as putting this on the agenda.
And
Go ahead, Mark.
My concern is, and this is going back a good ways, there used to be, and there's always a potential for conflict and crossover. So yes, it can be fruitful, don't get me wrong. But the drawbacks are if you have somebody who is on both that has any type of desire to maybe make decisions that should be made in one meeting and not the other. I'll use the prime example, and this goes back a little ways, Patty, but the sewer board, if you go back to how it operated and some of the things that it did, and you had that was before the authority is what it is now. There were decisions made, and it's way out of the statute of limitations, so I can say this, that should have been in one meeting and not the other. It also built a little bit, and we haven't had that for a while, a little bit of conflict. We ran into that, if you guys remember, a few years ago with the Center Street project. That was nobody that's on council now, but we did have a member then that was serving on the council and the authority at that point. And what happened was there was a heated debate in between the MMA, should they have to pay, I can't remember if it was $50,000 or $75,000 towards what happened in that project. I had to recuse myself out of it, if any of you recall, because I represent both. And it was within the year that I started representing both, so it was a great choice. But that's something that a lot of places do. If there's a potential for conflict, you try to limit that potential by not allowing it. We were lucky in that circumstance because the issue went away. I should say in good Meyersdale fashion, it's like if we ignore it, it goes away. And that's what happened with that, and that's not normal. But sometimes, it doesn't hurt to plan for success. So, and the less of that stuff we have, the better.
Comments from council?
That's fine with me. I'll make the motion and however you want to word it legally is fine with me.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Ron seconds it. Discussion or question? Patty, let's, since this is a little bit important, let's do a roll call vote. The motion was by Tom and Ron seconded. Clarence, listen up. We're going to need your vote here in a minute. Did you hear the motion, Clarence?
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
So discussion for 1 second. So we're addressing a conflict of interest between the two organizations.
Yes.
We have a lot of conflicts of interest in the borough. So we're only going to address that. That's true.
I guess at the
We
moment.
can address anything we want. This is a specific subject, Karen, that was brought up. If you have a thing that you want to deal with, then bring it up at another meeting, get it on, and we'll deal with it. But this is what we're talking about right now.
I would suggest that in the future, any of those should be addressed.
So, any other discussion before I ask Patty to do the roll call?
I do know years and years ago, when Bill Nagy was on council, they made some kind of ordinance or something where you could not serve both at the same time.
Well, you're not allowed to be elected to the school board and the borough council.
That's
That's
a statute.
precluded.
That's a statute.
So, I mean, okay, any other discussion? I'll ask Patty to do the roll call vote, but I want to be sure everyone has a chance to speak. Shane, what are your thoughts?
I'm good.
You don't give a,
I'm good.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Baker's not here, Mrs. Nagy,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Canarium,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Okay, that was unanimously approved. And then Mark, I guess we'll let you put that on your list.
Yep.
And whether it needs to be a resolution or how we go about it. But Patty, you could maybe put that on our finance committee agenda for both the committee meetings and our regular meeting. Okay. And the last item, the clinker here, discuss or revisit the motion to move forward with the grant application for the ADA restroom. Essentially that and anything regarding improving this building. So we're to that point on the agenda. Karen, you seem like you want to say something,
Yeah.
so let's hear your report.
So again, the ADA Act was passed by President Bush on July 26, 1990. What it says is that government buildings be accessible to people with disabilities. This includes physical, communication, and policy changes, which includes existing buildings have to relocate programs or make other accommodations to ensure access. It includes parking, it includes ramps and elevators. And at the end of the day, we're required. We're not following the law right now. And a citizen could file a private lawsuit in federal court if you believe your rights under the ADA have been violated. So we cannot kick this down the road. We can't rescind it. We can't revisit it. We can't kick it like we've been doing. So last Wednesday, I got busy. I reached out to a friend of mine that is highly regarded in the community, asked for a referral to an engineer. Tom and I met with the engineer last Monday. We are talking with Emily Newman, who's the mayor of Grantsville, extremely intelligent and go-getter. And she sent me a lengthy email on all kinds of federal money. She actually researched and got us a lot of information, even on Pennsylvania things. She's very invested in this community as well. Talked to Regina Kokenauer, who runs Somerset Inc. I talked to her. I said, what are you doing in Somerset? You have all these old buildings. What are you doing? We had a long discussion. Talked to Steve Spokehart. Talked about CDBG. So talking to a lot of people, collecting a lot of information, haven't stopped. Foot is on the gas. We're ready to go. I know we have to pay for it. So what I've come up with after meeting with the engineer.
Who is the engineer, by the way?
He's with Somerset Engineering. His name is Larry Phillips.
Because I think we're going to need to have his license and insurance, to be sure.
We haven't hired him yet.
Right.
So we had an initial free consult with him and another person on his staff. Tom and I met with him. So the challenge we have is, how will the building be viewed? The men's bathroom, we're walled in. I don't know how we can make it accessible. The women's, we have some wiggle room there. It's a larger room. But how will they figure the load? Will it be 2 stalls, 3 stalls? The engineers, we're going to have to do some research to even see.
You mean volume by usage, right?
That's correct. They'll figure maximum loads. But we may have some wiggle room there. So what I came up with, and I talked to Steve Spokehart, Tom and I met with the engineer, was, the CDBG funding is for ADA only. So even if we modify the women's restroom, they will pay for however many stalls, however many walls we have to paint, but just that area. So we would still be left with a bill. And I'm conservative. I'm concerned about money. So what I came up with is, we have a bathroom in the MMA office. It's kind of primitive, but we have drains, we have water, we have all of that there. So we met with the engineer, and what we're going to have them draw up, if council agrees, and if we get far enough away, this is a work in progress, but we would do one big bathroom, which is more than what we have now in the MMA room. So we would cut a petition, we would use the outside entrance, which now goes into the MMA. We're already talking about cutting a hole through from Patty's office into the former, what is the MMA office now, to have a records room. We will build a partition and make one big accessible ADA bathroom. We would leave the existing bathroom there for the borough office, but the engineers thought that is a great solution. And if it's all ADA, we can potentially get a larger piece of the reimbursement for building it. And what CDBG is looking at now, and we're waiting to get final information on, is it comes down to, I think it's section 504, is we have an existing building, so we would be removing an accessibility barrier, is how they identify it. So they're reviewing it now to see if they might fund it. So we're working on it.
So one question,
So that's my idea.
and I'm not trying to be premature, just wondering. So I understand starting with that first family, I mean, that makes sense. But from that volume standpoint, did the engineer mention anything if we need to increase that volume or not? Okay.
It would go by, we have to see if they'll approve it,
Okay.
but they thought they would because it is removing an
Oh, no, I get
accessibility
that part,
barrier.
yeah, I get that part.
And something's
I
better
just
than
meant
nothing.
after we start that, after we do the first one,
Yeah.
like,
Do we have to bring the whole building up to
yeah,
code?
yeah, well, I know that part we will, because a person doesn't actually have to file directly with the federal government. They can go, not only to Department of Labor Industry, they can
Right.
also do it through PFCA, like any other public building would be. So, but that being said, what I'm getting at is from a volume standpoint, when you brought up the volume, I just wonder, because I don't have the code
So
in
if
front of
we
me.
touch existing,
Yeah,
then I think you need to do the volume. And I don't think we can ever meet the burden with
Okay.
the existing men's room.
that's what I wondered.
If they won't approve it, we really might have to use that room
Yeah.
and might not have a choice and might have to build 2 ADA bathrooms. Well, 1, because I think then you would modify the existing women's.
I know the amount of distance that is needed for a stall.
It's increased to
Well, I think-
67 inches.
I think we need 2 separate bathrooms. I mean, I'm maybe misunderstanding, but if you're proposing to put everything down in this room that we were gonna give to move for records, we have to, that has to be approved, what you're saying. I mean, then we're gonna need the women's restroom, or I think we need 2 separate
one-
bathrooms here.
There'll be one
Family.
unisex
It's a
family
family.
restroom.
It's considered a family.
Yeah,
Instead of saying men's or women's, it's considered family.
correct.
But
So,
the volume of people that are coming in here for the Pancake Shack, aren't you gonna need 2 separate, a man's and a woman's also, instead of one?
All the hospitals in Pittsburgh have family style bathrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we utilize.
It's a start. It'd be a big
It's
start.
leaps and bounds over what you have currently.
I mean, that's the big thing I'm getting at, it's a start, it's not the end.
No, it's not the end. I mean,
Well,
we
it
met
shows
with
we're
Dar.
trying. We're really trying here to.
Well, some of us are. So this ramp out here doesn't face towards the front. It doesn't have a sidewalk big enough. The door doesn't open automatically. I mean,
It doesn't have to swing around either.
no.
It doesn't swing around. The door is impossible. If Jackson came in this building right now, he couldn't get in by himself. There's no way.
So we met with Dar today and they're working on a number for that. And then we need to put on, when we met with Dar today, to talk about having, and so this is a discussion for the workshop if we'll put it on the agenda. But if we want the windows to have the awning at the bottom to open for fresh air, we're taking a big chunk of our budget away from us. They're gonna have to reprice the whole thing. So that doesn't leave us money for a lot of the other things we wanna do. So I think we need to.
You said that'd be a significant increase. That's what it sounded like, at least, right?
With the, there's no doubt in mind, we need the bathrooms. But have we ever considered like maybe making the men's restroom a unisex and making the women's an ADA? I thought we was concentrating on them 2 bathrooms.
you're gonna have a lot more money involved than what she's talking about with the family, just the family. My thought.
Well, that's what I was thinking now. We could do that.
What are you saying again? The men's room becomes what?
We could make that a unisex.
But we can't get any ADA accessibility in there.
I said to make that a unisex. The women's, we can make ADA. Make that ADA for men and women. You could do that the same way. And they could get in there with wheelchairs and all, have a lock on the inside, so when you're in, you're the only one in there.
But then you still don't have enough bathrooms for the size of this building. You're actually going down in bathrooms then versus going up. So further use of the building, that limits you, right?
Okay, Denise, the public comment is
Oh,
over.
sorry.
You know, this is our baby
Yeah,
now.
sorry.
No problem, but we don't want to start a back and forth here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The money or the contract that Dara is getting, that is for windows, correct? Where is that money coming from?
The COVID money.
That couldn't be used to bring this building up to standards
Where people-
instead of windows?
We can do part of it, but not all, yeah. The problem is
See-
when the designation point occurred and what they require, that's what we got behind. So.
Because I mean, there's no doubt,
We can do within a framework.
we have
You
to.
see, Shane, what happened? When I came back on council, one of the reasons I got back on council was to save this building. And at the January meeting, there was a vote. Ron and I were the only two in favor of keeping this building. I gave a report, researched a lot of information, and said that this building wasn't maybe as bad as what we had been led to believe. If you watch the video, Danny put it up, I gave my report at February 13th, 2024. That report is on our YouTube channel. You can go and watch it. From that meeting forward, I said, let's spend that $187,000 on this building. Other members of council fiddle farted around. No, we're going to put it on this. We're going to put on the storm drains, the riprap. And finally, we got to the very end, like the gates are down and so we had to bid and it was a rush job to meet the requirement. So that's what happened. But I wish in retrospect, if we'd have planned this when I said February 2024, and then we wouldn't be in this situation. We could have had our handicap bathroom. I really have never advocated for anything specific, but let's council decide to utilize that money, and we still, some of it's gone now because we use it for the handicap accessible road or the emergency access road. Do you know how much is left, Patty? So that was about 15,000 for or 12. So anyway, I agree 100%. We want to make this building as good as we can. It's a showpiece for Meyersdale. The Lions are here. I just can't imagine a Maple Festival without them serving the pancakes in here. So the reality is, I think at this point tonight, we've accomplished. I would put these items on our March Finance Committee meeting, and then Karen, if you have proposals, Mark wants to say something, but let me finish. And then let's get down to nitty gritty. If we want these new windows, how much is that going to take? And figure out how much we want to do with the cost we have to spend, and then let's do it. I mean, we're not obviously going to be able to do everything that's proposed here tonight, I don't think. And in the future, I'm 100% for trying to get handicap accessible bathroom grants. The nicer we can make this place, the better. I love this building. You know, I fought for it. Where do we want to go from here? Do we want to?
I think we all worked hard. I mean, we applied for a $2 million grant. We got 2 grants this past year. We applied for 4. I led those initiatives. So I think there's more than just one person trying to do good
It's the
things.
whole council, Karen. We're all working together.
Okay.
I mean, I think Shane has a valid question, and unfortunately, Shane, the more I think about your question, the more I'll look into that before the next meeting to see if the information we can gain, if there's options.
I'm just.
I hate agreeing with you publicly, Shane, but you know.
Right. I just know that that is way more important, at least to me in the public, than windows. But
That's fine.
And I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault. I just know that we give to the fireworks because it affects us. We give to the fire department because it affects us. We give to the police department because it affects us. We give to the ambulance, it affects us. We don't have anything for handicap because it doesn't affect us. And it's time, not that it is our fault. I blame it on people that sat in these chairs ahead of us. But we're in a position now where we can change that, and we need to change that. You know, and
Needs to be a
if there is any way at all, we can put chicken wire up on the windows and get handicap accessible, then that's
I
what we
will
have.
say,
But I-
your feature's awesome to the chicken wire.
You know, I'm just saying,
It was great.
it's just, it's time.
It was good, it was a good comparison.
It's time.
Mrs. Thomas, you're so quiet. Do you have anything you'd like to offer? You're not saying a word. You just wanted to.
I'm just here to listen, but appreciate it, thank you.
We appreciate your attendance. If there's nothing else, I don't want to sit here and spin wheels. It sounds like we're going to have our work to do at the committee meetings, and Mark, maybe we can all get together, heads together, and then come up with a discussion. Again, if you're interested, we'll video that meeting. It'll be I forget the date, March
Thursday.
It'll be Thursday, whatever it is. It'll be announced on the Meyersdale Community Connections webpage. Watch it on YouTube or come in here in person, but thank you all for coming. I probably shouldn't do this, but you've been a wonderful group. I thank you for being respectful. Does anybody else in our audience have anything else they want to say? Come up here, and if not, we'll give you couple seconds or 10 seconds, and anything else? Yes, go ahead, Wendy.
Just to be clear, we're gonna continue to move forward, just so we have full transparency, we're gonna continue to move forward with ADA efforts in this building.
Yes, absolutely, and I would urge you to either follow us on the computer or come here.
I will volunteer my services to help you, whatever grant, search, seizure, whatever, with anybody, meet people here, do whatever, so know that I will be of service if you need me.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yes, thank you, Wendy, very much. Anybody else? We're gonna open the public comment up here. It's not quite 8 o'clock yet.
I just want to agree, it's a necessity we need, and I feel for you, because I remember taking my daughter when she was a toddler and had to go to the bathroom, into the men's room, and everybody looking at her and so forth and so on. So it is a necessity, we just have to work it out.
Okay, if there's nothing from the audience, and Tom, we're gonna go around the table. Last words from everybody. Shane?
There's no reason.
Okay, Timmy, you first. We're good. Mr. Mayor?
Good.
Karen?
Good.
Mr. Solicitor?
I'm good.
I have nothing else to offer. Thank you again for coming.
I'm good. Take all the help we can get. You know, a lot of, you read the obituaries and, you know, Joe would help anybody. I asked for help at the gym and nothing. I have basketball hoops sitting down there, cost $4,000. Nobody will put them up. I'm gonna have to pay a commercial company a lot of money to go put them up. That's it.
Jenny?
I'm fine.
Patty? Okay, we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
It's early. I don't.
It is, Patty, at 7:52. Motion, please. Ron and Jenny. Okay, I'm gonna give it to Clarence. Clarence makes the motion and Jenny seconds it. You're not upset with that. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Clarence, thank you very much for tuning in.